Israel will have to face reality, and therefore Israel will have to deal with the Arab boycott of its commerce. Israel will have to keep a strong army to protect its integrity. Israel will have to continue and work hard to dispel all the messages of demonizations, of rewriting its history, and so on. And this will be practically a major effort on the Israeli part to keep up with the process, but at the same time it will give them some more security that they don't give up and don't give in to people who are looking to harm them. The benefit is there if you'll be able to build up some kind of a consensus and understanding the right position and the right history of the Jewish people and the people of Israel. So far, the demonization and the propaganda against Israel is very present and very pervasive, and it's present within the Arab countries. It presents even in the Western societies. And if we go today and we want to present Israel case, we may have resistance in many places because they just don't know the facts. And therefore, if we delay it, we might be beneficial from that point of view, and then Israel can negotiate in a more friendly environment. Today, Israel is not in a friendly environment. I think that there are several things that have to be happening, but if we face the most important ones and we want to make some kind of a valuable future to the region, is demonization must stop, incitement must stop, support of terror must stop, and there must be an effort to educate for peace. Once you have that in place, everything else can be negotiated much easier because there are many other things that has to be negotiated and implemented. And this should be practically the first step. And this will benefit Israel and will benefit the free world as we know it. To talk about realism in the Middle East is like speaking about a dream, and I don't know if it's a good dream, a bad dream, or anything else. But you always hope for peace. You always hope for a better future for the people. And looking around the neighborhood in our days, it's getting more and more complicated. Therefore, good people cannot give up. You have to continue hoping, you have to continue dreaming, you have to continue working for peace, and again, to benefit everybody. The society in Israel, the society in the Arab street, and everywhere else in the free world, because they're all interconnected. If we are talking about a real peace with the Palestinians, and the Palestinians become a real productive and a society which are looking forward to a better future for the children and grandchildren, their interest is going to be to keep out evil. And their interest is going to be to work closely with Israel, because Israel has a dream of a better future for everybody, Jews and Gentiles alike. And at that moment, if you have a good peace with the Arab Palestinians, then you'll be able to build a future together and stand together against evil. Naturally, Israel will have to make sure that these tendencies and these hopes and these aspirations remain. And therefore, there should be some military cooperation. Israel should have the ability to make sure that these aspirations are really lasting for a long time. If you mean stopping a force of evil to invade this territory, it has to be, I would say, even a global effort. Because Israel by itself will not be able to stop all forces of evil around the world. Israel is a tiny country built in its ancestral homeland. Israel was the original Palestinian people. The Arab Palestinians and the Christians joined later on. The Arabs are trying to take it over. They want to use the term Palestinians as only Arab and no Jewish or Christian connections to that entity. And unless you see a real change in the education in the street, not only in Israel, not only in the Palestinian Authority, which represents the Arab Palestinians, but it has to be also in the Arab states, in the neighborhood and beyond. Today you have major threat to peace in the region, not only from the neighboring countries to Israel, but to countries which are further out. Look at Iran, for instance. Turkey is unstable. Egypt, I don't know what's going to happen to them. Iraq, the killing Christians, Jews, whoever is left there without blinking an eye. So we really, if you want to make sure that evil doesn't prevail, we have to make sure that the good people speak up. And they cannot speak up unless they're informed. Once they're informed and they know what they're facing, they'll be able to be more effective in whatever they do. I would love to know that there are few people who can do so much. But at the end of the day, Israel by itself will not be able to do that. The task is too big. And if Israel will be more vocal about it, people will classify what Israel is doing as propaganda, even though they're just speaking the truth. Therefore, in order to make any dent in all these waves of uncertainties, you need to have people from all over the world who are good people, who are informed people, who want to have a better future for all, speak up and do something about it. Because at the end of the day, this problem is not only a problem of Israel, it's a problem of the free world. I think it's crucial. And I'm so happy to note that your organization and many others are trying to focus on the facts and on the truth and let it known to many people. Unfortunately, many people are not informed, and therefore they are falling for a variety of propaganda messages of rewriting history, of demonization. The classical demonization factor is when they demonize Israel of being a bad country, is the worst in the world. And you look at the facts, suddenly you see that Israel is a wonderful country who's helping many people, including the Arab Palestinians, including even people of Hamas who are coming to Israel for healthcare. Israel helped out in a variety of places, but people don't know the facts. It happened to be that once we were touring the Gaza Strip borders, and one of the officers told us, you know who is sitting today in this crossing point? It's a brother-in-law of the Prime Minister of Hamas, because he has some medical problems and he's coming to Israel to get help. And then you know who else is sitting there? The veterinarians from Israel, who are working with the veterinarians from Gaza to try and help them cure some problems with their cows. So Israel was providing them with about 20,000 vaccines for the cows in Palestinian Authority region and the Hamas organization's leadership in the Gaza Strip, where everybody is demonizing that Israel is treating them so badly. So people just don't get the facts right. And organizations like yours and many others are doing a fabulous job to bring up the facts and the truth, because we don't have to lie. We just have to share the facts the way they are. We should share the glorious history of the Jewish people, of the Christian people, of the Muslim people. They all did wonderful things in the world. So we should just make sure that people know the facts and try and figure out a way how we can all work together for a better future to all. For example, the PJTN is one of these most wonderful organizations who do exactly that. They're facing reality and they're running with it. And what I saw from my experience with PJTN, they're really standing up for the facts, for the truth, and they're not bashful. They don't go with what's called politically correct. They go with the facts, and they share it objectively. If you want to contest anything of what they said, they'll be more than happy to listen to you, as long as you say the truth. And if you say things which are inadequate or are not in accordance with the fact, they'll set you straight. And this is a wonderful value of a person who can stand up and protect what is right. Israel tried it at least twice. Once at the disengagement from southern Lebanon. Israel moved all its troops out of the separation zone to make sure that everybody is going to be happy. Israel went back to the internationally recognized border with Lebanon. And even the UN recognized that this is the right thing to do, and this is a border that nobody disputes. There was a promise that this area will not be used as a staging area to attack Israel. There was a move even to put in the UN to verify and to secure that border. But what did we get? We got exactly the opposite. Hezbollah became stronger. Iran was supporting them with rockets, with a variety of armaments, which caused havoc and destruction in Israel. Millions of people were under their fire, and leaving territories without filling it with a valuable alternative is not an option. The second opportunity Israel had is to leave the Gaza Strip, even though it was part of the Israeli ancestral land. Israel has historical connection to the region, but they decided in Israel that in order to promote peace, let's see what they can do by removing everybody out of Gaza. They removed even the cemeteries from Gaza, so no Jewish dead bodies were left in Gaza. What did Israel get instead? They got rockets, and they got declaration of war, and they got only headaches. And therefore, if you want to evacuate any land, it's a major problem because you don't know who's going to fill in this space. At the same vein, if you want to tell me that the problem there is land for peace, I have news for you. It's not a question of land, it's a question of peace. And as it is today, it seems that the neighbors of Israel are not aspiring for peace, especially the radical movements, the radical Muslims, who have this dream of international and global caliphate, want to liquidate all the non-believer in stages. They start with Israel, and then they continue all over the world to undermine free society as we know it. They'll undermine the Christian communities wherever they can find them, and they'll try to establish their presence. And I don't have to give you too many examples when you look at the terror that they're running all over the world. The United States, it's England, it's France, it's Spain, and even today there was in Bulgaria. So it's an endless problem that has to be really thought seriously after to make sure that we don't relinquish land to people who just want to undermine us and to cause trouble. What happens to Israel today may happen to other people tomorrow. Israel is only the little Satan. The big Satan is the United States and the Western societies. And if Israel is weak, enemies of good will think, oh, we can prevail. We cannot let them have it. If Israel goes down and goes under, the next step is going to be just to move on. The next step is to take over Europe, because they stated it several times that any land that was controlled by Muslims in the past is going to be controlled by the Muslims in the future. And any other land which was not controlled yet by the Muslims will be controlled by them, and they will reign in a huge international caliphate. Even the moderate Muslims don't like this ideology, but unfortunately many of the radicals are going unchallenged. And this is a risk to Israel and a risk to the international community. Once we're talking about free societies, we'll give rights to individuals. For example, you have a big population in Israel who are Arabs. About 20% of Israeli populations are Israeli Arabs. Many of them are Muslims, some of them are Christians, and from other religions. And they all have equal rights. Slowly, slowly, you see the subversive activity that is brewing under the surface. You have people from the Palestinian Authority who will go into Arab villages to incite the people. They used to go across the borders with Israel to cause more and more trouble. They trying to ask the rights and to go through the court system to undermine a variety of security needs of the Israeli military to protect a variety of locations. And in Israel, the Supreme Court is very open and very accommodating, and they will give them the ability to bring to court a variety of issues, and they'll win sometimes. It's not that they lose every time. They will sometimes, they lose sometimes, like in a free society. Now, what is happening in many other countries around the world is similar. They're trying to exploit the open societies that we are living in to impose their will and their aspirations and their culture on their neighborhoods. And they'll do it through the court system, through all kinds of international organizations, through pressure, through a variety of NGOs. So pressure within the UN, which, by the way, is hijacked by a variety of countries who are not open and they're not democratic and they're not altruistic. So they can pass a variety of resolutions in that organization which will promote their ideology. And if any country in the world will stand up to some kind of movement of subversion, they'll find a variety of excuses explaining that it's not really a religious movement, it's some kind of a social justice movement. It will appeal to some people, but at the end of the day, you'll see that it doesn't work. You'll see, for instance, that you have many women who will demonstrate in favor of a free society in the United States and free society in Israel because they claim that it's not free for whatever reason. At the same time, when you look at the people who are instigating these movements like Iran, like Syria, like Lebanon, like Turkey, you see that the rights of the women is being totally marginalized in those countries. So they speak in one language in one place and they speak in a different language somewhere else. And altruistic individuals may fall for their presentation of the cases. And there were many studies that were made to see how much influence of radical Muslim attitudes and habits are being implemented in certain countries. And they found that it's proportionate to the number of Muslims in that country. Look at Turkey, that was the cradle of Christianity. It basically has decimated the Christianity in their midst. Look at Iraq. There was a flourishing Christian community, which now it's totally marginalized. Look what's happened in Egypt with the Coptic society. They're also being totally marginalized and they live in fear. And look at the Christians in Israel. They're happily there and they're going by their own ways and their numbers are increasing, and in the Arab countries the numbers are shrinking. So there are different ways of conducting wars. You can conduct wars with a sword, and you can conduct wars with all kinds of legalistic means, and rewriting history and modifying situations. And today what we see in many places, that the radical Muslim movements, first of all, they're hiding behind all kinds of neutral institutions. And then they are trying to use the free society means and tools to advance their own causes. And this is a problem that many people are not aware of, And once they're aware of the problem, it's very difficult to solve. If we look at the history of the world and how much involvement they have in making sure that free societies stay free, most of the activities of the international community is what's called the lip service. And the lip service is also being given in a selective way. If you look at the UN as an organization that will do good every time, I have news for you, it is not. Unfortunately, the UN is being hijacked by a variety of countries which are not democratic, which are very restrictive, which set the wrong examples to the free world as we know it, by oppressing women, by oppressing free speech, by not allowing people to excel the way they could do in a free society. And they're trying to preserve their own status without compromising their limited future. And they would not relinquish power. And therefore, once you go into the UN, you have organizations which are working together to maintain their status the way they perceive it, and not necessarily to make sure that they'll do something good for the world. There are many free countries in the UN. They may be very wealthy, but they don't have the votes. At the present day, as we know it, the UN can outvote any decision that any of the Western countries will bring to bear. They'll vote out a variety of suggestions from the United States, from Canada, from England, from France, and from many other good countries. And the end result will be that it will paralyze the UN. So let's say if the Arab nations will decide to invade Israel again, as they did in 48, as they did in 67, as they did in 1973, the UN might start debating the issue very carefully, at length. And by the time they reach any decision, even if you'll say it's a favorable decision for Israel, the end result might be that we don't have to deal with it anymore because Israel is not existing. And therefore Israel will have to maintain its own strength and not rely on international decisions in order to maintain its own integrity. So in other words, I don't think that Israel can rely on the UN to come to its help when we have a problem. Classical, I just mentioned it earlier, in southern Lebanon, the UN guaranteed not long ago that no territory is going to be used against Israel. They won't allow so many rockets to be installed in southern Lebanon. Go today to see what's going on there. The UN are sitting there. The rockets are more than ever, and the Hezbollah is using them at will. So if you want to rely on the UN to solve the problems in Israel, or for that matter in many other places, it's very questionable ability to do so. Look at Syria. Look at Iraq. Look at Iran. They're totally paralyzed. They don't know what to do with themselves. So unfortunately, the international community is not united around good. It's united in a variety of ways, but they won't be able to function properly in a moment of crisis. So to prevent a Holocaust, maybe yes, maybe no, but nobody knows for sure. But you cannot put your future on a maybe. If you're going to have a peaceful state next to Israel with a true meaning of peace and tranquility and cooperation, any citizen from any religion should be able to live anywhere they want. Israel was extremely generous in offering to relinquish part of the ancestral homeland to the Arab Palestinians. If you recall, once the Ottoman Empire was dismantled after the First World War, and the entire region was reorganized, Israel received as a promise about 1 part out of 800. So it's 1/800 parts of the piece of land for the future homeland. The Balfour Declaration gave Israel a part of the ancestral homeland. 80% of that land was removed by the British Mandate and handed it over to the Hashemite family, which created what we know today as the Kingdom of Jordan. So 80% of the Jewish homeland was already relinquished to an Arab country. The remaining 20% were again a problem in the international eyes. And there were some pressures from the international community to redivide the little sliver of land between the Jews and the Arabs in the region. Israel was very happy to give up another 50% of the remaining 20% just in order to get a real peace. But they didn't have any takers. Israel was ready to do a lot of things towards peace, but unfortunately did not have a party to work with. If you would have a viable and altruistic and a peaceful group of people who want to make peace in the region, Israel is going to be the first one to do it. But for that, you don't have to remove Jews from their own ancestral homeland. You can have a border where people can live in peace and understanding and recognizing each other and make sure that we have a better future for our children and for our grandchildren. I think that if you have an enemy and you are building up the economy and you build up their international relationships, you will not get a friend. You will get a stronger enemy who will try to use all the power that they have obtained against you and against everybody else who thinks like you, and they'll continue to grow in their subversive action or in subversive way. Therefore, any support to any entity of evil has to be strictly controlled and monitored and conditional to changing the way of life. They should stop incitement, they should stop propaganda, they should start educating for peace, and then they can build a good and fruitful and viable society. You know, you cannot give the enemies all the means to become stronger without caveats. And if you have leaders that will take that handout of welfare to build a stronger society of terrorists, nobody will benefit from them. At the end of the day, they themselves will not benefit from them. Because if you have a dictator who is a self-serving dictator, who doesn't care about their own people will suffer too, not only the neighbors. So definitely not. I would not give support economically, politically to people when I know their intentions, because I look what they teach the children in schools. See, if you want to know what are the intentions of society, check what they do in their schools. If you glorify the jihadists, if you name streets after people who commit suicide in order to kill others, if you name city squares in the name of people who killed other innocent individuals, I don't know how you can trust them. So I would not give them any economical support or political support. The UN, unfortunately, has no understanding of what free world should look like. The majority of the people in the United Nations who are valid members don't cherish freedom and won't support freedom in many other countries. Even though we can hope for a better future for all, but United Nations as an entity, for some reason, cannot do that. Look what happened on the border between Egypt and Israel after the War of Independence and the 1956 war. The United Nations promised Israel will put United Nations guards and monitors along the border between Egypt and Israel, And you'll see that peace is going to be the wonderful things that will accommodate and guarantee the future of the people in the neighborhood. When Gamal Abdel Nasser decided he doesn't need the UN there, he just told them, pack up and leave. And guess what the UN did? They packed up and they left. And then Nasser moved ahead with all his activities to try and liquidate the state of Israel together with Syria. They closed the waterways to the southern part of Israel, they increased terror activities, and the UN was nowhere to be found. Even if they built a huge invasion army in the Sinai, the UN did not do anything. And the same thing the UN is doing in southern Lebanon. You have a presence of the United Nations in southern Lebanon, and they allow the terror organization Hezbollah, which is supported by Syria and Iran, to build up the armaments, to build up their subversive activities all over the place. And the UN is doing practically nothing. This is a very important question. And the reason is that any person who would have these hopes and aspirations will be intimidated to express them. If anybody will stand up against the current leadership, his fate is going to be unimaginable. They're going to be marginalized, they may be beaten, they may be killed, and therefore people are afraid to speak. If you have a courageous leader, that leader won't be able to function because the population is not ready for that. In order to have a leader who will be able to make a difference, he will have to grow with the population itself. He has to educate the people around him and to make sure that many people are aware of the truth, they're aware of the future, and they look at the things in a more realistic way. If you want to guarantee a better future for your own people, respect your neighbors. If you respect your neighbors, you respect your own people, you have a better future for all. And for now, unfortunately, I did not see these movements within the Arab society or within the Arab Palestinian society that will support this theology. The principle of land for peace agreement is practically a fantasy. Unfortunately, the problem in the Middle East is not land, but it is peace. The Arab countries in that neighborhood control huge, vast territories of land. Israel is only a tiny country which is situated over 1/800th of this territory. The countries around Israel built their own countries also in only recent years, but the appetite is big and the dreams are out of control. They see Israel not as a neighbor, but they see Israel as an intrusion to their territory, even though it belonged to the Jewish people way before any Arab Palestinian or Arab at all was in the neighborhood. But they want to see their own dreams and aspirations realized, especially the radical Muslims. They are believing in a caliphate, in a world which is ruled by their own Sharia law. Israel is an obstacle for that because Israel is a modern, open society which would not go for that. And if they manage to liquidate Israel, then they have another feather in their hat. And they say, great, we eliminated one group of infidels, now we have to go and take care of the rest. And therefore, I don't think that the problem there is a problem of land for peace. The problem is ideology, which is a radical Islamic ideology against everybody else. And there, the international community should be able to see the reality and make sure that the radicals don't prevail. Israel relinquished already 80% of its homeland, and the state of Jordan was created there. The kingdom of Jordan is situated on 80% of the Jewish homeland. The same is true for the Golan Heights. Golan Heights was also part of the Jewish homeland as of the Balfour Declaration, where the British mandate relinquished it to the French mandate, who in turn gave it to Syria. And at the end of the day, Syria used that territory to cause trouble to northern Israel, to kill innocent Israeli farmers just below it. And they lost the Golan Heights in an aggressive war, which they intended to eliminate Israel. Luckily, Israel won the war and managed to survive. So it's very difficult to say that the problem currently is land for peace, and once we solve the land issue, there's going to be peace. We have to work the other way around. We have to make sure that we have peace in the communities, that the people are peaceful, and then the land will not matter anymore. Because if you have a good neighbor who takes care of their own people, where the border lines is totally secondary. If you recall history, the Muslim Brotherhood has their own agenda. And the agenda did not change. The agenda of Hamas did not change. The agenda of Iran did not change. The ways that they want to get over the current situation might be governed by certain diplomacy. It goes exactly in line with the philosophy of Muhammad, the way he was treating the tribe of the Quraysh in Medina. His teaching at the time were that you're allowed to deceive your enemy in order to gain enough power to the point that once you have enough power, you can run them over. And this is what Muhammad did to the Quraysh. He destroyed the tribe once Muhammad gained enough power. This was also one of the favorite excuses of Arafat when he had to explain to his people why he's negotiating with Israel. He said, don't worry, I'm dealing with the treaties of our prophet, which means I'm negotiating with the Israelis until we gain enough power and then we'll run them over. So I would consider the statements of the president of Egypt very carefully, and I would evaluate them based on what he's teaching the children in the schools. If he will start teaching his children in school tomorrow that he wants to live in peace with Israel because Israel is a respectable country, I will accept that as a condition to see how we're going to move forward. As long as you continue with subversion, you won't have a future there, because he'll try to undermine not only Israel, but to undermine anybody else who doesn't believe in his own religion and his own convictions. He just waits to build enough power to be able to implement it. So I would be very suspicious about what he wants to do and how he wants to achieve it.